Alright, so at this point we know how to declare a standard variable, we know how to declare a one-dimensional array, and also we've covered how we can declare a two-dimensional array. And now what I want us to talk about is how to initialize them. Basically, initializing, what it means is how can we declare and assign some content to a variable at the same time. So to initialize a standard variable, we could just declare it and assign a value right afterwards. So for example, we've seen and we already know how it can be done, int num equals to 5. So what we do here is we basically declare and also assign some initial value to this variable, and also we can do so for variables of different types, for variables of double types, for variables of character types, and so on. Also, if we wanted to initialize one-dimensional arrays, if you remember correctly, we used the curly brackets right after the assignment. So basically, when we specified int grades with 5 elements, then in the curly brackets, we specified all the values that this grades array will have. And it actually doesn't really matter if it will be of an integer type, a double type, and so on. And basically, finally, to initialize two-dimensional arrays, we will also use some curly brackets, okay? Very similar to how we've done it with one-dimensional arrays, but in kind of another way. And that's because, you see guys, the two-dimensional arrays, the whole process of initialization is actually kind of tricky and can be done in more than just one way. And for the sake of convenience, I would like to kind of categorize these ways as following. So let's talk about the first way, which is the standard way. So the first way is actually the most standard way to initialize a two-dimensional array. It's probably what you are going to see most of the times in most of the examples that you're going to encounter in your programming career. So it's somewhat similar to the one-dimensional array initialization with this usage of the curly brackets, just that now we are using more than one curly bracket. We initialize the values for each row in each pair of curly brackets, okay? So I think instead of just the formal definition that I've written here on the side, I think it will make more sense if I will show you this little nice example. So we create a two-dimensional array with 2 rows and 3 columns. And the external curly brackets, okay, you see here, let's take this laser, okay, and you can see here that we have both the out curly brackets and we also have some inside curly brackets. And these external curly brackets, what they actually do is that they describe the assignment operation to this matrix. Okay, so basically we have the right side and we have the left side, so all of that goes right into filling this two-dimensional array that we've created. And each internal curly bracket, okay, so each pair here, okay, it basically what it does, it describes the values for each row in this matrix. So for the first row, we are going to have like these three values, okay, so you have 2 rows, okay, 2 rows and 3 columns, and these first, let's call it triple pair, okay, so it goes and fills this first row. So 1 2 3 goes and fills this first row, and then you have additional internal curly brackets, and what they do is that they fill the second row in this matrix. So very standard way to initialize. Previously with one-dimensional arrays we just used like one pair of those, and we specified all the values for the one-dimensional array. So here, think about it like we have a couple of one-dimensional arrays. Like, think about it, every row is a one-dimensional array, okay? It's not exactly the way it is behind the scenes, but maybe it will help you to understand this a little bit easier. And now let's take a look at another example, okay, where we're using floating point types. So basically what we have here is a new two-dimensional array with 3 rows and 2 columns. And each of the internal curly brackets is going to be of size 2, meaning just with 2 elements, because we have 3 rows and 2 columns, and 2 columns are just enough to fill up each and every row. So kind of to summarize what we've done so far, basically in the first standard way we can say that this way simply refers to when the internal curly brackets, like you can see here and here, have the exact amount of values to complete just one row. So meaning you're looking at these curly brackets and you can see here 2, 2, and 2 values at each internal curly bracket. And you can see also that that's the exact amount of values, that's the exact amount of columns. Okay, so here are 2, here you have 3 values, 3 columns. So that's basically the standard way to initialize two-dimensional array. So that's pretty simple, nothing complicated, right guys? Basically you can use it and test it out that it works also on your side. Great, and now let's proceed to our second option, okay? And this option, I call it like incomplete values in the internal curly brackets. So in the previous standard way, we defined the exact amount of values for every row in each internal curly bracket. Now I want to talk with you about another type of initialization where we have incomplete internal curly brackets. Meaning, suppose that you declare the two-dimensional array with 2 rows and let's say 3 columns for each row. And up until now you've learned that you have to specify the exact amount of values as there are in each row for this two-dimensional array, right? That's what we've seen in the standard approach. But actually there may be times when you don't want or you don't have the option to provide all of these values for some two-dimensional array, okay? This also may happen. And in this case, you can specify just the number of values that you can or need for each row. So let's take a look at this example. So we're creating a matrix, a two-dimensional array with 2 rows, okay? Here it is, 2 rows and 3 columns. And basically what we can see here is just that in each of these curly brackets, internal curly brackets, we don't specify the exact number of values as there are columns here, right? Here are 3 columns, but we specify first of all just 2 values and then just 1 value. So in this case we will just pad, okay, with zeros all the missing values in each row. So for the first row we will add like 5 and 6, okay, because we have here 5 and 6, and for the second row we will add just this 7, and everything that comes after the last value that was specified here in each of the internal curly brackets we will simply pad with zeros. So for the second row, we basically, for the first row, we will add just 1 0, and for the second row, we will add these 2 zeros at the end, just to fill this two-dimensional array that it will have, basically, that it will not have any uninitialized values. So the values that we know that should be there, and also the values that we don't know and or maybe we are not sure yet what they should be, then let's just pad them and set them to be 0. Another example would be like to use this matrix, okay? We have 4 rows, 3 columns, and you can see here that in the first row we do not fill it till with all the values, so we have 1, 2, and 0, and then we have 4, 5, 8, which is okay. We don't have to fill nothing with zeros. You have also 10, okay, 10 and 2 zeros, okay, because that's just one column. And also the last row is also will be filled with zeros. So once again, guys, don't take anything that I teach here as kind of, like kind of, you get the information and you say, oh, okay, so he said that this is exactly how it works and I'm sure about it. I will go to my exam, I will go to my interview, whatever it is, and I will just like tell them that's how initialization of two-dimensional arrays work. No, that's not the case. Please, everything that I use here in this video and in the previous videos and in the future videos and everything that you hear also on lectures, just make sure that it works. Go to your IDE, okay, and write these lines of code. Test it out. Make sure that it's exactly as you think and it's exactly as your teacher says. And only once you do so, you basically will confirm that you understand everything that is being told, okay? So don't take anything like, I don't know how to say it, is granted or like is obvious and like to rely on it for 100%. No, guys, go and check it out for yourself and be sure of what you're doing, and also that will be a nice practice for you. So let's move on to our last example here that I just wanted to mention you. So here in the first row we specify an empty curly brackets, okay, so it will be filled with zeros, okay, because we don't have any column. Then we have these 5.2 and 1.0, and lastly 3.3 and 0 at the end to fill this with zeros. So the question is that I am asking you is, try to check it out and print the values also of this two-dimensional array, and make sure that if we didn't specify here the empty curly brackets like we've done here, will this still look like this, or maybe we should just specify here empty curly brackets, and that's why I'm telling you to test everything out. So maybe and maybe not, but I'm leaving this to you guys, okay? And lastly, let's talk about the third way to initialize arrays, and this way is called the excessive values in the internal curly brackets. So we talked about two situations for two-dimensional array initialization. The first one is where we have the exact amount of values for each row in the internal curly bracket, and the second one is about the time where there are less values for each row than it should be, all right? And we've also seen a couple of examples for each of them. And now what we want to talk about is a situation where there are more values for each row in the internal curly brackets. So basically, each of these situations we are not going to cover where exactly they may happen, but there are times when you probably will use one of them at least, okay? But you are going to also to encounter with different types of writing and different types of programmers that one prefer this way, the other one prefer that way, and it's important that you will whenever you're going to look at it, you will not go like really scared until, oh wait, but you specified here less or more values than it should be. It only has three columns, but you specified 5 values for this row. What is going on? Okay, so my goal is like for you to be relaxed and give you all, at least I'm trying, most of the options that you are going to encounter during your career and to make life easier for you. So let's say that we have this example. So int mat 2 and 3, okay, 2 rows, 3 columns. And we can see that there are more than just 3 values for the first row, right? So we can see here 5, 2, 1, 6, and 5. So the question is, what will happen behind the scenes, okay? So should we feel like, feel the first row, feel the second row? What does it refer to? So actually, if you come to think about it, that's very easy to interpret. We're simply going to take all of these values, here we have 5 of them, and simply fill them one after the other to our two-dimensional array from left to right. Okay, so we are simply going to fill the first 3 values to here, okay, to the first row. And once we are done with the first row and we know that we are not finished yet, we are simply going to slide over to the next row and start filling the next row with the values that are remaining. So the values of 5, 2, and 1 go to the first row, and the values 6, 5 go to the second row. And since we don't have anything else to do, we will fill it with a 0 at the end. Okay, guys? So I think we've covered pretty nice and pretty awesome options. Also, what I can see here in this example, and that's also why it's so important for you to give it a try to see if you're getting any warnings, any errors, is because nothing is perfect and sometimes mistakes happen also to the student and also to the teacher, okay? And everybody does mistakes. And my suggestion to you is like to be very, very aware of what you hear and of what you read. And one of the questions that probably you are going to ask me is whether you should or should not have added additional curly bracket here, okay, internal curly bracket, and only then this option would have worked. And if not, okay, why is that working? And maybe you're getting some error or some warning, and basically what will be the difference if you would use this way or if you have just added additional curly bracket. So awesome, guys. I think that I've managed to give you this lesson of testing out also your teacher. And what I can say to you guys for this video is great job. We've covered pretty much good material in this video. So write down the notes that you have, go take a break, and then come back fresh for the next super important video. And until then, goodbye.